I just feel that, we're living in like four different Americas. Okay. MAGA America, left wing Bernie Sanders, AOC America, and then inner city America, and then people like you working for Google, with two kids, nice two cars, and remote working America. You know, it's a very different worlds.
So, what do you think we should do about such a country with so many different realities?
Well, I don't know the answer, but I think also because America is so diverse, more diverse than most countries out there. I mean, certainly more diverse than if you take a look at our major political partners. We're more diverse than Russia or China, right? So with more, diversity, obviously comes, more potential for conflict. But I also hark back to what you were saying about how like the news people want to kind of blow up the whole, um, hatred and just like exacerbate the situation when I think there's actually been really, really good strides in all those communities from, the Latino community, the Black community, to the Middle Eastern community to come here, the Asian community, the white community. There's been so much progress over the last
I
20,
would
30 years.
actually disagree with you on one of the key elements there. I think working class white people have been totally screwed by this country in the last few decades.
Okay.
I don't think their situation has gotten much better at all.
So that's sad.
And I think that's why Trump was elected, because they said, hey, the same old crap from Hillary is not, I've heard it before. More free college is not going to solve my problems. If I'm living in central or western Pennsylvania or West Virginia, or my factory just closed down in Michigan, that's not going to do it. NAFTA is not going to do it for me. And Trump came over and said, the problem is these Mexicans, and I'm going to build a wall. And the problem is these Chinese, trade deals. I'm going to solve all of that. And, they were like, well, I don't know if it's going to work, but it's better than nothing. And but so the sad thing is that they still got screwed. Like, those tax cuts did not help working class white people.
How do you reconcile the fact that obviously I like Trump? One of the things is that he basically did what he said he was going to do, which is so different from most politicians when they run for office. So, I mean, like in terms of NAFTA's gone. Now it's replaced by USMCA. Mm-hmm. And then China trade has been renegotiated. We had trade war for like, I think over a year, and we renegotiated everything.
And so, I mean, that deal's gone anyway. Yeah.
So, but what do you say to that? I mean, like, wasn't all that good? No. What do you think of USMCA?
No, I think this whole trade thing is a complete red herring. And I think it's really convenient to blame Mexico and China for all our problems because it feels good to blame another tribe. But the reality is that in a modern economy, more and more value, economic value, is being created by a smaller number of people. And adding tariffs to some plastic toys from China ain't going to help the guy in West Virginia. And building a wall in Mexico is not going to help someone in Detroit. The reality is that this economy is record highs in terms of GDP and had some records in terms of stock market, but those benefits don't go to a huge swath of the country. And no one other than Andrew Yang was willing to talk about how we need to basically like rewrite the rules of how this thing works. Because if you play this out, not everyone is going to become an artificial intelligence engineer at Facebook. Like, sorry.
So where does this go? Because I think you highlighted to me years ago that we might have civil war. I know some of my alt-right friends think there's going to be potential civil war. And like where does that go? Because like, it's not like a civil war between North and Southern states. You know, I mean, how
No,
does that work?
I mean, if you look at world history, these are not hard to predict. This is
So what's
basically a situation where a large majority of people without, reasonable economic resources at some point say, no more.
so
This
what's
is
going to
not going to
happen?
work for us.
Well, okay, so it's going to be like a French Revolution, or the situation happened with the Tsar in Russia, something like that.
It doesn't have to be. A better way out would be to say, look, we as a country are richer than we've ever been.
Yeah.
But there is probably a better way to do this. And the way to do it is to give some economic floor so that no matter who you are, even if you aren't getting that fancy job, working for Goldman Sachs or whatever, you're gonna be able to have some basic necessities, and then whatever job you can get either will be something that you really like, or will give you some extra money so you can have more resources. And we still have generally a free market capitalist system, but it doesn't start at zero.
See, I might not be totally opposed to that, but my fear, and I think a lot of fear from the MAGA people, will be that this will just be like a huge attraction to illegal immigration, birth babies, all that type of thing. I mean, how are you going to give $1,000 to every American? So let's just imagine you're in high school, you're 18 years old, you're American, either born American or naturalized American. You're going to get $1,000, but your illegal undocumented friend, who's also 18 from whatever country, going to the same high school, doesn't get the $1,000. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, probably there will be less of an incentive to cross over illegally, because you'll know that you're not getting these benefits. And secondly, I would be very okay with the combination of basic income plus very strict enforcement of our immigration laws. Because in a way, illegal immigration and the economic kind of theft that we all benefit from is kind of like a very messy UBI. And I'd rather just have a very clean, open one and transparent one, which is like, hey, we're going to tax this economy so that there's a floor, but it's only eligible for citizens because we can't possibly give this to anyone that walks over the border. And then if you do come over in an undocumented way, like, we're sorry, you're not going to have any of these benefits.
Yeah, I hear you. What my fear is that a lot of the people that are really, really left, they are having a globalist vision where everyone in the world has a UBI. I think even Zuckerberg had mentioned that a few years back, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I mean, there's nothing. Why is that a problem? If other countries have UBI, there would probably be less need to have this kind of spikes in migration.
oh, so it's not going to be like a UBI that America needs to support for like Latin America or something like that.
Every country could decide to implement it, and if you're in Latin America and there's UBI, then maybe actually you'd be better off staying.
No, but we won't have to pay for it. Americans won't have to pay for the Latin
course
American
not.
UBI.
No,
Because let me just explain to you. Part of, I think, the MAGA, again, I don't speak for MAGA, I speak for myself, but I think a fair people of the MAGA is like, we just fear that, okay, this is just going to be another thing where America's going to have to eventually pay into, oh, we're going to have to do paying UBI for people in Somalia.
Why would we pay UBI?
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's like,
where did you see that policy?
This is a fear. It's a fear. We have this fear. I have the fear. I have this fear.
I haven't seen anybody advocate that. How would that even be sustainable?
I'm just sharing with you my fear. I'm just sharing with you. Just putting it out there.
Well, I mean, to your point, why wouldn't we focus on UBI for our own citizens?
So look, I mean, I'm not saying I'm for UBI, but if you could have a pathway to having a UBI where we would be guaranteed that we wouldn't be paying into some UBI for the rest of the world, and that we would have a very strong border enforcement, and that there would no be any like trickle down UBI where, oh, all of a sudden like, oh yeah, we'll just extend UBI to all people, or maybe California, being very liberal, say, okay, well, since the federal government are not giving you UBI, we'll give you the UBI, and then we have to bail out California or some shit like that.
I'm pretty sure California gives more to the federal budget than maybe any other state, maybe with the exception of New York. I mean, so I do want to call that BS out, where a lot of MAGA people complain about having to bail out these Democrat states. But the reality is that these Democrat states are the ones that are paying for a lot of these southeastern, red states.
So
now, the other thing is about your fear.
Yeah.
Like, why are you? This only happens if Congress and the president support it. So, do you really think the Senate would approve taxing Americans to provide basic income to people in Somalia? How is that even sustainable?
Well, I hope you're right. Yeah.
And
with
so
NATO.
What about NATO?
We pay a huge portion of NATO.
No, we don't. That's such a fallacy.
We had that discussion a few months ago.
No, it's not how NATO works. There's no like NATO bill that every country gets. You know how NATO funding works?
You're supposed to spend according to your GDP.
You're supposed to spend on your own freaking military. And somehow we're saying that the Germans, because they're not paying for their own army, like they should pay us because they're choosing not to buy more like Joint Strike Fighters. Like, that's up to them. If they don't want it, then don't make them.
So Tom,
this whole notion of other countries not paying America is just, it plays into this MAGA tribalism, which is like these freaking Germans and these freaking French are taking advantage of us, and they're laughing at us, and they're playing us for suckers, and the freaking Merkel's for open borders. It's like such bull when you actually look up how NATO works. Well, it is every country spends their own money on their own military. Yes, they don't spend as high of a percentage of GDP as we do. We don't have to. If we don't like it, we could reduce our spending, but we don't want to.